to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and we are joined by Judy Chu. She is a member of the United States Congress, representing significant portions of the San Gabriel Valley. And I want to speak with you about your efforts to bring small business back, I guess you could say, to the San Gabriel Valley, which did all right during the recession, but definitely there are efforts being made to bring it back. Talk to us about it.
Yes, we want to make sure that small businesses get all the help that they need. And one of the best programs of the Small Business Administration are the SBDCs, which stand for Small Business Development Centers. They give advice on business plans, on marketing, on financial access, and on starting up a business. They do all of that, and they do it free of charge.
Wow.
Now, I was very alarmed when I got onto the House of Representatives here in the San Gabriel Valley and discovered that there was not a single one of these in the San Gabriel Valley.
Why wasn't there? Do we know?
They did have one. It fell apart. They just never had the initiative to put it back together again. And as a result, everybody in the San Gabriel Valley had to drive to Long Beach, which meant that they would not do it.
Of course not. And so back in 2011, is that right?
Yes.
You were able to get an SBDC center opened.
We actually were approved to do it. We were somewhat anxious because you have to partner with a university or college.
Okay.
And the universities and colleges were going through cutbacks at that time. They had to have some matching funds. But then, voila, Pasadena City College
PCC,
came through,
right.
And Dr. Mark Rocha was very much
know him
behind
well.
it. They worked very diligently, and it opened a few months ago.
How exciting is that?
It is so great. It's such a tremendous resource, and everybody knows PCC, so it's an easily accessible place.
And when I think about small business, we know that it's been so difficult for small business to access capital, because lending, with the advent of the housing bust, lending got very tight, and so it can be very difficult. And so are we seeing the SBDC work in those areas where they can help businesses get more access to capital to try to grow their business?
Well, this is a specialty of the SBDCs. They have relationships with the different banks and try to make sure that these businesses get the right referral. But in reality also, they get the businesses ready so that when they go to the banks are more likely to accept them. Also, they make them aware of the programs of the SBA. For instance, the SBA guaranteed loans. There are all kinds of financial services that the SBA does provide, which the SBDs can tell you about.
How is the SBA doing? You are a member of the Small Business Committee in the House of Representatives, and I have to think that during tough times, the SBA was feeling those cutbacks, but have we seen the SBA turn a corner? Is it starting to be funded in such a way that it can service the needs of small business?
It did get the brunt of some of the cutbacks,
right.
But we were able to fight, in particular, the cuts to the SBDCs, because those are considered the most effective programs that the SBA has. However, the SBA is coming back. It is making loans that are even larger than before.
Really?
So that is good. We do want to increase the number of loans that they have. And I do want to tell you that there is very good news, which is a local person has just been nominated by President Obama to be the cabinet secretary in charge of the Small Business Administration.
Right.
That's Maria Contreras
Right,
Sweet.
we know her well.
Yes, I'm
right.
sure. So many of us know
right.
her well, and I'm so excited.
And do we expect her nomination will go through? It needs Senate confirmation, correct?
She does need a nomination
right.
and a confirmation by the Senate,
right.
And it does look like it'll go through.
Okay, I want to talk about another issue that is before the House of Representatives. We were recently in Washington, D.C., interviewed some of your colleagues, and I'd done that the year before as well. And the year before, it seemed as if immigration reform was heading towards passage. In the intervening year, the Senate did pass immigration reform. Bipartisan vote, I think it was 68 votes in favor. It stalled in the House of Representatives. And even though the California delegation does seem to support immigration reform, both Democrats and Republicans, there is a serious challenge to the efforts to pass immigration reform. Where do we stand?
Well, there are the votes in the House to pass immigration reform. We have 199 Democrats.
Right.
We have 26 Republicans that have said that they support immigration reform, and you need 218 to pass a bill. So if a bill were put on the floor, you could pass immigration reform.
And let's talk about the parliamentary maneuver to get a bill on the floor. It's not as if any member can walk up to the lectern and say, I'd like to put a bill on the floor. That is not how it works.
No.
How does it work for our viewers?
The Speaker controls what bills actually get put on the floor.
Period. End of conversation.
That is right. So if the Speaker doesn't want it to go on the floor, then it won't. And that's what's happening with immigration reform.
But we remember recently the Democrats used a tactic known as a discharge petition in the context of the extension of unemployment insurance benefits. Is that right?
We did do that, yes.
And you were looking to force a vote if you got a majority of members to sign it's called discharge petition. What happened in that instance?
We didn't have the 218 signatures, but we did have close to 200.
Okay.
And it sent a very clear message that it was important to do unemployment benefits. In fact, soon thereafter, the Senate passed the bill.
But as we speak today, the UI bill is still languishing in the House of Representatives.
And it is horrible because now we have 2 million people that are unemployment, that are out of their benefits, and they're at their last straw. They don't know how to make ends meet.
So as we speak today, there has been rumblings about the use of a discharge petition in the context of immigration reform. So when you look at the politics of it, like you said, 227 votes for immigration reform. Is that math correct? Or 225, whatever it is. But again, will those 26 Republicans sign a discharge petition? Because you need to get to 218, correct?
That's right. Well, this is where the public comes in. You know, it's amazing the coalition of people that want immigration reform to be done. Business, badges, and Bibles. Actually, there's a group called Business Badges.
I like that.
Yes.
Right. I like it. I hadn't heard that, but that's a good one.
Oh, yeah. It's an actual group.
Right.
And they are comprised of business, law enforcement, and all kinds of churches, including the evangelicals, who want this to happen.
What's interesting about the Triple B, as we'll call it, is those groups tend to align with more conservative Republican causes. So one would think that Republican members may have cover, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, yes.
Based upon BBB.
The businesses are particularly anxious to get immigration reform done. For instance, the agricultural businesses in California. They are jumping up and down because they don't have the workforce to put out their crops.
It's remarkable when I speak with Republican members from California. If I didn't know, I wouldn't know what party they were in, because they sound so in favor of immigration reform. They just sound like any other, quote, Democrat, if you know what I'm saying, who is also supporting immigration reform. But here's the challenge, and I want to ask you about it. Of course, in California, it's not a big surprise that Republicans are supporting immigration reform. Their business community wants it, and many of their constituents want it. But when you go to other states with very low immigrant populations that are red states, represented by Republicans, it's just not top of mind or top of agenda. So how do you talk to your colleagues? I'm sure you're friends with some Republican members from other parts of the country, to explain to them the importance of this. What do you say?
I would say that everybody is concerned about the deficit. And if you do have immigration reform, over 20 years, you reduce that deficit by $1 trillion. It's because you have more people coming out of the shadows, and then they can pay taxes.
The CBO has said, the Congressional Budget Office, that the bill would cut the deficit by $200 billion in X number of years, $1 trillion in Y number of years, could increase economic output by over 5% by 2033.
Yes.
So where do we go from here?
So we will be undertaking the discharge petition. The groups that want immigration reform to be done are advocating very heavily in those Republican districts. And we hope to get those 19 signatures necessary from Republicans.
We'll have to see. Her name is Judy Chu, member of the US Congress. When we come back, we'll be speaking with a trustee from Pasadena City College who works with Dr. Mark Rocha. His name is Ross Selvidge. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back.
What percentage of America's working population work in a small business? Over 25, 35, 50, or 60%? Over 50% of the working population, 120 million individuals, works in a small business.
Welcome back. It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and we are joined by Ross Selvidge. He is a trustee at the Pasadena Community College District. Sir, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're a new trustee, so
That's right.
how is your new position? Are you enjoying yourself?
I'm enjoying myself, and I tell everybody that it's 5 times as much work as I expected. Being a new trustee for a college with 27,000 students and a $250 million budget means there's an awful lot to learn.
Right, and for our viewers statewide, PCC is quite the campus. It's beautiful, a very large student body, really pulls from a lot of different communities and feeds into some outstanding four-year institutions.
Well, it certainly does. It's really a top-tier community college. It was when I was there a long time ago.
Long time ago.
A long time ago. My wife went there. Members of my family, we've got a long history with PCC, but it's changed. The student body is different. It's drawing from a much larger area now, but it still has the reputation for being an absolutely top-tier college.
And just as an example of one of PCC's graduates, where did you wind up?
I spent a year at PCC after graduating from John Muir High School in Pasadena, and went on to USC, got my undergraduate degree in architecture.
And then?
I ended up with a PhD in finance and land economics.
Just a PhD?
From USC.
I was going to say.
So I changed fields.
Oh, you did. So let's talk about something that's exciting happening on campus, and it's apropos given your background as an architect. The campus recently opened what's called the Center for the Arts. Tell us about it.
Right. Well, this is the capstone project, really, for a large campus improvement program that was launched after we passed a bond issue about 10 years ago.
And if I may, I want to talk about bond issues before we go specifically into the center. It is quite a financing tool that you need. You turn to the voters, and often they're generous and they vote in favor of bonds.
Correct. Right.
So talk to us about the bond that passed and why it was so important for the center.
Well, it was large. We raised $150 million, and the center, I think, cost $50 million, something like that, out of the 150.
Right.
And we passed the bond because people in the district were confident that the college would spend the money well. And this is just about the last thing we're going to be spending that bond money on.
Right.
And it's my understanding and my belief that we've actually brought the whole program in under budget and on time.
Tell us about the building.
The building houses the visual and performing arts, which were combined in one school. We have lecture space, we have shop space, we have studios for photography, we have classrooms that are rigged for the various types of technology that are now being used in the visual arts.
21st century.
We have the recital rooms, and we also have a recital hall.
And didn't something happen recently in the recital hall? It was pretty significant?
Well, on the night that we had our grand opening, which was a pretty spectacular community event, we had a number of dignitaries and people who had been generous in helping fund special parts of that facility, but also Mayor Bill Bogart of Pasadena chose that night to give his State of the City speech following the grand opening program in our recital hall.
There's no doubt that when you think about Pasadena, PCC truly is an integral part of the community. PCC, Caltech, Rose Bowl, I mean, it really is part of the fabric that makes up Pasadena.
An arts center. I learned during the campaign last year that the reputation of PCC as a school where you can learn the arts is much more prestigious than it was when I was there a long time ago, getting ready to go into architecture. Students will tell you who go to PCC that PCC makes it possible for them to get into Art Center as the follow-on. Art Center is one of the most renowned art schools in the world, and they're very selective, but PCC's art programs and the Art Center people have a very good relationship. Going to PCC is better than going to, I won't name other community colleges around here, but be diplomatic. But it's really a fine way for somebody going who has that ambition to go to the top tier art college to get their basic training.
And for those that may not want to advance, it's also a good degree if you consider Burbank and Glendale and the businesses that are in those communities, Pasadena as well, many studios, both traditional studios and 21st century studios, and so it helps out a lot.
We had a director, a very well-known director who had gone through PCC who came and gave a really inspirational talk as part of our grand opening.
I want to speak about the future of not only PCC but community colleges in general. As we know, you know, when I was younger, maybe when you were younger, those that went to community college often saw it as a place to get a fresh start. It wasn't necessarily seen as a place where you would go after excellence in high school. That's changed. It's changed dramatically. Community colleges now are absolutely respectable institutions, and they are places where people will go for a variety of reasons. It could be that it's close to home, the cost is right. We also know that the four-year institutions, especially at the public level, CSU, UC, are impacted. And when you combine those two factors together, there is now a push to investigate, to study whether community colleges should be permitted to offer four-year degrees here in the state of California. 21 states allow their community colleges to offer some form of four-year degree, not necessarily in all categories, but in some categories. What do you think of that effort to at least study the question of whether California's community colleges should be granting four-year degrees?
Well, we certainly need to study it. Pasadena City College was one of the colleges that was designated as being eligible to look into this and possibly do it. I'm a guy who needs to be shown. You got to explain, you got to answer questions if we're coming up with a really big step. And at PCC, if we were to offer a four-year degree, it would be in nursing. It would be in the nursing field.
Because?
Because that's the program we've got, and I believe that's what was designated for PCC.
Well, there's no doubt that nursing has turned into a profession that's very desirable, well-paid, and we know in California there is a dearth of nurses. We also know with the Affordable Care Act there's a need for frontline medical professionals, so it's not surprising to hear that PCC would look at that area. What can you tell us where we stand now, at least as it relates to the investigation of whether we should look into this?
Well,
what have you learned?
At our last board meeting 2 weeks ago, we had a presentation by the head of our health sciences school, which covers both nursing and the various dental programs and a few other health related programs. And she ran through the benefits and the way having a four-year program would have an impact on PCC. We'd have to make adjustments with faculty, we'd have to make adjustments with facilities, we'd have to make adjustments with the relationships that our nursing program has with local hospitals and medical facilities.
Let's talk about those adjustments, because there's no doubt that the requirements of educational institutions at a four-year location are different than at a community college. And so would PCC, or any community college for that matter, need to start requiring PhDs to be the professors? Or would you need more labs or more laboratories? Or is that, again, up for investigation and study?
Well, I think you would certainly need more labs and laboratories. There would need to be more space, just because we're going to have more bodies doing the study.
Sure.
But I don't know what impact it would have on the nursing faculty. And I couldn't tell you right now, because I'm still kind of new.
Which is fair.
You know, what the breakdown is.
Which is very
right
fair.
Now.
At the same time, while there's a lot of excitement around the possibility, there is some concern that should the California community colleges go in that direction, it would fundamentally change the mission of community colleges. And some are a little fearful of that change. Community colleges had intended to be places for technical degrees, for 2 years, and then matriculation to a four-year. What do you make of that?
Well, when people say that there are 20 or whatever states in which community colleges offer four-year programs, if that is used as an argument for why we should in California or at PCC in particular, I'd like to understand, why do those states have it?
Right.
And how do those circumstances compare with the circumstances here in California and this educational master plan that we've been operating under for so long?
If you think, most recently Florida adopted four-year degrees, Michigan, I mean, these are big states.
Yes.
And so it's an exciting possibility. I'm sure it's one we'll be talking about in the future. His name is Ross Selvidge. He is one of the newest members of the Pasadena Community College District. My name is Brad Pomerance, and this is Charter California Edition.
What percentage of California's nurses is educated at California community colleges? 25, 45, 60, or 70%? 70% of California's nurses receive their education at a California community college.
Welcome back to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and we are joined by Stephen B. Steward. He is working with an organization which we'll tell you about in a moment. It deals with youth and music. But first, I want to start with Mr. Steward and talk about his story and what brought him to LOV Olive Branches CDC. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you talk about yourself a bit and how we got to where we are today?
Well, I'm the ninth of 12 kids, Brad, and I was
Just
born
12.
and raised. Yeah, 12 kids, 7
right.
boys, 5 girls.
Oh my, okay. And you were raised?
Born in a little town called Smithville, Mississippi.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's about 30 miles southeast of Tupelo, where Elvis Presley was
Sure,
born. Yeah.
and I'm sure that the soul of Elvis Presley was in many of you and all of you. And give us a sense of what it was like growing up for you. What were you experiencing? And talk about the church.
Well, my uncle was the pastor of a church that I grew up in called Miracle Revival Center. My dad was a singer and an engineer, but he sang part-time, and had all my older siblings in a group called the Rose of Sharon. I grew up looking at them and wanting to be like them, so I grew up just singing almost from the womb.
Right, literally.
Yes.
And so we fast forward to adulthood, and you ultimately pursued 2 paths. And both paths, I think it's fair to say, are serving humanity in a very significant way. Tell us about the musical path, but then also the other path.
Well, music has always been a part of my life, and I've sang with some of the best and sang background most of the time, and now I'm just beginning to come out of my shell and get out there and be in the forefront.
And we'll talk about that in a second, but you're working with whom during the day?
Well, I'm a parole agent for the State of California Department of Corrections.
Wow.
Yes.
And tell us about that.
Well, it's a
To the extent you can.
oh, it's a challenging job.
Right.
It's a dangerous job, but there's nothing like speaking life to somebody, especially when they've lost their dignity and think that nobody cares about them, think that they can be of no significance to the world anymore, and you just speak life to them and give them back their dignity.
And who are you serving? Who are your clients?
My clients are, it can be a person that was sentenced 25 years to life. It could be a murderer, a gangbanger, could be a drug addict. It's all the different aspects of criminality out there.
And I have to think that through this profession, you came to realize that early intervention is so critical.
It is.
And so you have been working with your wife,
Yes.
your in-laws, on an organization whose specialty is early intervention.
Yes.
The organization is called LOV Olive Branches CDC, Community Development Corporation. Tell us about this organization and what you, your wife, and your in-laws are doing.
Well, they developed it in 1999, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, Leroy and Anna Tolliver from Pasadena. And so my wife and I, we just picked up there's three different categories that we concentrate on, which is basically life skills, mentoring program, and the youth music program. And we head the youth music program.
Shocking.
And we just out there trying to make a difference for at-risk kids.
And talk to us about who these kids are. What puts them at risk, and what do you try to do to bring them back?
Well, you know, anybody could be at risk. A decision in your life can make you an at risk. You know, shoplifting with kids. I've worked as a probation officer in LA County for 20 years before I transitioned to parole, so I dealt with that as well. But we're dealing with kids who have low self-esteem, kids who maybe don't have a father at home, kids that are lacking in some area of their lives, and we just want to bring them up to where their self-esteem is built, their character is built, and up to the part where they believe in themselves and they thrive.
And talk to us about the music element. It's hard to deny that performance for many can really change their perspective. And that's what I wonder about. How and why and where are you working with music and these at-risk youth?
Well, music is a universal language, and I believe that the music that we share is enlightening. It's music for the soul. It touches the heart.
Do you work with gospel music?
Oh, yes, yes.
And I told your publicist, I love gospel music. It touches me in a way that is, you wouldn't anticipate, but I really do enjoy it very, very much. Tell me about how you're using gospel music with your children, with your youth.
Well, you know, gospel music, it's almost like planting a seed, you know, and then you cultivate after it springs up a plant, and you watch it grow, and that's the way we use this music to influence these kids' life. We start with them when they're young, and then we just cultivate them as they grow older, and once they grow older and they perfect that craft, it gives them more confidence, and we know that studies has been done that kids who participate in music and the arts, they make better grades, they make better decisions in their lives, and they become productive people within the community.
And you're taking your program to the next level, to a
Yes.
greater level, to a bigger level.
Yes.
Coming up on April 12th, you will be presenting the first annual Youth Music Festival. It will be at the Ambassador Auditorium in Pasadena. It is a talent competition. There are prizes, there are scholarships, there are different categories. Tell us about the event.
Well, this youth music program, it will be hosted by Imani Hakim, and she played Gabby Douglas on the Gabby Douglas story.
Just Gabby Douglas.
And yeah, she's very talented. And so we're having 3 different categories, and on the elementary level, the junior high level, and the high school level, and top prize will be a $1,000 scholarship sponsored by Simplicity Bank.
Which is real.
Yes.
You also have some, I guess you could say, folks that the kids will look up to. They
Oh,
are
yes.
coming to the event. Tell us about some of the stars you have coming.
Well, we have DJ Kiss, a DJ from Pasadena area. We have different people
From the Disney
from the
Channel.
Disney
Yeah, I see
Channel.
someone from Ant Farm.
Yes,
You
yes.
have Brandon Michael Smith. He was on the sketch show on the Disney Channel Live Kids Saturday, so I
Exactly.
know what you're talking about. An American Idol runner-up. And these folks obviously are musical.
Yes.
Why is it important, other than the obvious, to have these folks join you?
Because these kids can see them right up front, and they're right in their faces. And you know, these kids from Disney and all the other places where we have them coming from, they can just touch these kids and be a part of their lives. And it kind of sparks that dream that they can do it as well.
How can we attend the event?
Oh, yes.
Tell us how we
Anybody.
can attend the event.
Anybody and everybody can attend the day event. The kids that are under 12 is free, and kids that
Okay.
are 12 and older are $10 with their parents, of course. And the evening event, it's a concert with myself and my mentor, Andre Crouch, the
Sure.
legendary Andre Crouch,
Yes.
and Grammy nominated Jonathan Butler.
No doubt. And
Yes.
so to get tickets, you can go to the websites. We'll put them on the screen, LOV Olive Branches CDC.com, or your specific website, StephenBStewart.com. Tell us more about the concert.
Well, the concert will introduce me. This is my first CDC, my first
Right.
CD that I'll be
Right.
releasing May 20th,
Okay.
2014.
Okay.
And it's called Enter Your Gates. And it's a worship and praise CD that will feature a variety of different, we have jazz gospel, we have a salsa
Right.
song that's in songs of forgiveness, we have songs of restoration, and different areas that we
Right.
present these songs in.
And then Mr. Crouch, will he be joining you on stage?
Andre Crouch will join me on stage, yes.
How did you loop him into this event?
Well, I met Andre 20 years ago at a music conference in Estes Park, Colorado.
Okay.
And my first time ever meeting him, and he was my boyhood hero. I listened to his music all from 6 or 7 years old till I met him. And we've just become good friends over 20 years. This August will be 20 years we've been friends.
Tell me more about the kids that are performing.
Oh, the kids, we have videos from kids that are all around this area,
Right.
Pasadena, Altadena,
Right. Right.
LA County area. We have a little boy that's a 6-year-old, but he is one heck of a drummer, and he plays. We have kids that plays guitars and they sing, kids that are multi-talented, they sing, they play instruments, and kids that are dancers. And
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. His
Thank
name
you.
is Stephen B. Stewart. He is with LOV Olive Branches CDC, their upcoming day-long event, April 12th. It will be held at the Ambassador Auditorium in Pasadena, California. My name is Brad Pomerance. This is Charter California Edition.